This is Beretta 80x Cheetah versus Kimber Micro 380 versus Ruger LCPs. A comparison. Alternatively, you might call it 380 ACP. Does pistol size matter? Weather was fantastic at Banner Shooting Range where this video was filmed today. As a result, there is quite a bit of background noise. In today's video, we are going to take a quick look at the Beretta 80x Cheetah against a few of the popular pocket 380s of today. Yes, we know commenter who was already typing about how this is not a fair comparison. This isn't an apples to apples comparison video today. The points we are going to be looking at today are, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages to going up or down in pistol size when it comes to 380 ACP in 2023. With the nice weather and the accompanying background noise that went with it, on-range narration parts of the footage, like where I mentioned the targets and the ammo, were removed from the range footage. In the first range set, we are shooting 2 magazines from each firearm using Remington UMC 95 grain FMJ ammo. In most videos, we shoot the same number of rounds through each firearm featured, but not today. Today we are shooting full magazines of ammo from each firearm to highlight the capacity differences and how that may impact the results on our targets. The targets in today's video are set up at 10 yards. This might seem slightly longer than most would consider for a pocket 380, but for today's purposes, we think it will help highlight some differences. And now, let's hit the range! Target is at 10 yards. That's me shooting these narrow guns left. How I naturally want to hold them, I don't get a straight trigger pull on them. It's a healthy Alright, Kimber bottom right target, same ammo. Safety works, alright. Good, glad we confirmed that. And a failure. It's a little high of the bullseye, but otherwise not too bad. Target what we'll call a pocket gun. Alright, let's do magazine 2 now. Kimber might shoot the ball. Here we go. No hold open on empty. 5 and 6 on there too, actually pretty close to the bullseye. Original LCP showing up. Here we go. Okay, original LCP, in my opinion, that's actually a fantastic group for that gun. I probably haven't shot it in like a year. Okay, now, to the Beretta. Theoretically, with this being at least one size, maybe 2 sizes larger, being a compact double stack, instead of the micro compact or pocket carry classes, this should do better. Let's see if it does. Here we go. Magazine's top right target. First shot will be double action. Okay, so first magazine, Beretta shows the advantage, extra size. Let's see if we can do our second one. Here we go. When I shoot this with 10 most of the time, I had 12 in it. Hopefully we don't do that again. Beast that is. Good times. Looking at our first set of targets today, I would say the results were as expected. Probably the better group with the 80x Cheetah, the Kimber Micro 380 not that far behind it, and then we have, well, the LCPs, they put holes on paper. I might have had a group going there with the LCP Max, but I don't know, there's a lot of variation in the height of those shots. So anyway, they put holes on paper, we'll put it that way. At 10 yards, I'm glad I put holes on paper at least. While we have done size comparisons and first range reports on these firearms in the past, we are going to take a quick moment here today to break down the numbers and view some pictures with comparison shots, just to try to get an appreciation for the size difference between these firearms as it relates to the 80x Cheetah, as our measuring stick will say. The Beretta 80x Cheetah is a compact double-stack firearm chambered in 380 ACP. It is 6.8 inches long, 4.9 inches high, 1.4 inches wide, and weighs in at 25 ounces unloaded. The Kimber Micro 380 is a micro compact single stack 1911 style pistol chambered in 380 ACP. It is 5.6 inches long, 4 inches high, 1.08 inches wide, and weighs in at 13.4 ounces unloaded. The Ruger LCP Max is a compact double stack pocket pistol chambered in 380 ACP. It is 5.17 inches long, 4.12 inches high, 9.924 inches wide, and weighs in at 10.6 ounces unloaded. The Ruger LCP is a compact single stack pocket pistol chambered in 380 ACP. It is 5.16 inches long, 3.6 inches high, 0.82 inches wide, and weighs in at 9.4 ounces unloaded. To try and give you an idea on the size of these firearms, we're going to show you some comparison shots with the firearms against our 80x Cheetah, starting with our Kimber Micro 380. Now here are some shots of the Kimber on top of the Beretta, followed by the Beretta on top of the Kimber, just to give you an idea, again, the size difference. Here we're going to show you the top-down view so you can see how much both longer and wider, and then from the grip view as well. Now we're going to show you that same thing, just with the LCP Max against the Cheetah. LCP Max, obviously, being pocket carry, smaller than the Cheetah, as you can see by the side-by-side and the over-the-top shots. Narrower in the grip, narrower from the top down, shorter barrel, shorter length. And finally, one more time, using the smallest of our firearms here today, the original Ruger LCP. As you can see, it is also smaller than the Cheetah as expected, narrower, shorter slide, less length, less width, shorter grip, yada yada yada. Before we get to the conclusion of today's video, let's head back to the range one more time, this time for a defensive ammo test using our favorite 380 ammo, the Hornady Critical Defense. Looking at our targets for one final time here today. Again, as expected, we see the 80x Cheetah and the Micro 380 putting the prettier holes on paper. Now, I did accidentally shoot the LCP at the LCP Max target, and I might have even had better results with the LCP than the LCP Max today in terms of hits on paper, but I'm not 100% on that. Jury's still out, so to speak. Well, anyway, let's move on to the conclusion to today's video. If you're still watching at this point and you enjoyed the video, think about mashing those like and subscribe buttons. Not only does it help the channel with that algorithm everyone talks about, but more importantly, it helps a good cause. The money we get from Google for the content on this channel is donated to charity, 100% of it. The first check we got from Google wasn't much, a little over $122, but every little bit helps. I picked two charities that are important to the crew: the Children's Hospital of Orange County and the Community Food Bank of Central Alabama. Half of that check went to each organization, plus a little extra to cover all the fees. Good times. When we say, thanks for watching, we really do appreciate it. Your viewership helps us do something positive with firearms related content. Thanks for watching. Now that we've seen these firearms in action, let's discuss some of those advantages and disadvantages. We're going to start the discussion with the Cheetah. The obvious disadvantages of the Cheetah compared to the other three firearms we looked at today is size and weight. Price is another one, but we'll come back to that later. The Cheetah is the largest and heaviest of the four firearms we looked at today, and it's not close. Being larger and heavier, it's going to be the less concealable for most people compared to the others. That extra size and mass isn't all bad, however. That extra size gives it a better sight picture. The extra mass helps it absorb recoil better, allowing for the shooter to get back on target for follow-up shots quicker. For some people, that extra size will make for a firearm that is easier to control and shoot. The tiny pocket firearms we are shooting against it today are a good example of where this comes into play for someone like me. Where those tiny guns naturally want to sit in my hands is not a position where I get a straight trigger pull on them. I have a tendency to push left with those tiny guns, and I have to hold them in a way to me that feels unnatural. For me, the size of the Beretta better lends itself to how I want to naturally hold it. This is obvious when looking at holes in our targets, especially as range increases. The Beretta, for me, shoots a more precise group. Even on a day like today, where I didn't shoot it what I consider particularly well, it put the better holes in our targets. Some eagle-eyed viewers will likely say, yeah, but the Kimber really wasn't that far behind. And I'd agree, it really wasn't. Being a 1911 style firearm that comes with a full-size pistol sights, the Kimber has a couple things going in its favor. It has a decent single-action trigger, big sights that are easy to see and get on target quick. The Kimber we're shooting today has plain 3 white dot sights, though they may now come with night sights. Speaking of triggers, the 4 firearms we are looking at today have very different triggers. The single-action 1911 style trigger of the Micro 380, the double-action only trigger of our first-gen LCP, the hybrid single-action, double-action style trigger of the Ruger Secure Action trigger on the LCP Max, and the single-action, double-action trigger on our 80x Cheetah. Besides the large sights and single-action trigger, I would also consider the Kimber a size up from the LCPs we fired next to it today. Many people can pocket carry a Micro 380, but I find it to be just enough larger to not be nearly as pocketable as the LCPs are for me. Besides being a little larger in size versus the LCPs, that extra size is again not all bad. While the pocket 380s often have a snappy reputation, the Micro 380 I find to be on the more mild end of 380 recoil spectrum. It's light enough to be easily carried, but still has just enough mass to help it absorb recoil. The little bit of extra size also allows the Kimber to have those nice full-size sights. Another feature it allows for is an external safety. On a single-action only firearm with a relatively light, short trigger pull, an external safety is an excellent option to have. The one on the Kimber is easy to operate while also not being in the way. If there's one area I would knock my Micro 380, it is in the reliability area. As we saw today, mine is prone to the random occasional failure. Those failures don't happen all the time, but they happen just often enough to where I don't have the confidence in it I'd need to consider mine a carry firearm. Now let's move on to the LCPs. I'm going to discuss them as a group and specify one or the other when needed. They have many similar qualities, so it's easier to group them here in general. Of the firearms we looked at today, the LCPs would be the smallest, lightest of the bunch, with the first gen LCP being the runt of the litter. That runt is obviously the easiest to conceal and carry, but it's obviously struggled to put as pretty holes in paper as its larger competitors. Much of that comes down to the characteristics of that first gen LCP. Later generations and models have had updates made to give them more visible sights and what I'd call an easier to use trigger. The first gens have a very long, rather stout double action only trigger. Combine that with the almost invisible frame integrated sights, and you have a package that most people will find difficult to hit the target beyond extremely close ranges. It's not designed to shoot the dots off the dice at 100 yards. It's a last resort, extremely close range defense weapon. Even with its updates, like much more visible night sights, a lighter, shorter, secure action trigger, the LCP Max is in that same boat. Both of these firearms are extreme, close-range defense weapons. That's not a knock on them. They fill a very important role. In a life or death, self-defense situation, the LCP in your pocket is probably better than the hand cannon back home in your safe. They are extremely easy to carry. While that can be a good thing, it isn't always. They are so easy to carry that people often forget they have them on them. It seems like many of the stories we see where the TSA finds a loaded firearm in a carry-on bag, that firearm is something like a LCP or a Bodyguard 380. As I mentioned before, pocket 380s often have a reputation of being snappy, uncomfortable firearms to shoot, and the LCPs are no exception to that. It is not uncommon to see someone new to firing one have limp wrist failures when learning to shoot one. Besides the short sight picture, I find things like the tiny nature make them among the most difficult firearms to shoot at a comfortable level of proficiency, and they require much more time to maintain that comfort for me. One surprising area where some pocket 380s don't struggle to keep up with their larger sized brothers is capacity. The Ruger LCP Max has 10 and 12 round manufacturer magazines available. Odds are good there are extensions to increase that capacity as well. The 80x Cheetah has 10 to 13 round magazines available, and I wouldn't be surprised to see higher capacity magazines out there eventually. With the size difference between the Cheetah and the LCP Max being what it is, that the capacity is what I'm going to consider the same, that's going to be a big factor for some. In situations like this, one thing the crew likes to ask is, does that capacity advantage make a difference if you can't hit your targets? Well, on a day like today, I'd probably reply with some version of, well, I did put most of my shots on paper, so I'm going to let you be the judge of that. We've saved our best talking point for last, price. In this video, the Cheetah is the most expensive item, but for some items, it's not quite as big of a difference as our other recent videos. Where I live, things like the LCP Max are more expensive than things like the Ruger Security 380. The Kimber is not far off from that Cheetah actually, at least my base model version. It's certainly in the more expensive boat, and depending on model, like say a Raptor, can be much more expensive actually. It is not uncommon to find original LCPs for $99 at doorbuster deals here as well. So we do have quite a range of price points represented today. My Kimber Micro 380 is a good example of a case where expensive doesn't mean better across the board. In this video, up till now, I've said my Micro 380 when talking about the negatives, but the reality is the same is true of all the ones I've shot. I know a few people who also own one, and they are all consistently inconsistent. Had this video not been 380 specific, I would have used the Micro 9 instead, which I have a much higher level of confidence in its reliability. The Micro 9s I've shot have been extremely reliable. Getting back to our original size versus advantages and disadvantages discussion. A reliable micro 380 would be a good example of going down in size versus the Cheetah while not giving up much in the way of advantages the larger pistol has. It still has mild recoil, but retains the full-size sights that make it an easy firearm to get on target. The intuitive 1911 style safety, along with a short, light, single-action trigger, help make it an easy firearm to shoot, while it's at a size small enough and light enough to be easily and comfortably concealed carried. When it comes to maximum concealability, a pocket carry option like the LCP or LCP Max should be on your list. Getting down to that size does not come without consequence, however. The extremely small, light nature of these firearms make them very easy to carry and conceal, but also makes them very snappy and more challenging firearms to shoot, in my opinion. With some pocket 380s, like the LCP Max, you don't give up much in capacity. And finally, let's circle back and end the discussion where it started, the Cheetah. Being the largest, heaviest of the four firearms we looked at today, the Cheetah is the loser in terms of concealability. For its extra size, it doesn't have much of any capacity advantage to speak of here, but it's not all bad. It does have very mild recoil with a very good single action, double action trigger. It's very accurate and very reliable. Even though it is the largest of the firearms we looked at today, it is still a compact double stack 380 that most people will find easier to carry and shoot compared to its full-sized cousins like the 92 FS. Well anyway, we hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a good day.